Откъси от художествени произведения на английски език за факултативно обучение и свободно избираема подготовка и за паралелките с усилено изучаване на езика. Автор-съставител Румяна Македонска. From The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was born in Oak Park near Chicago in Illinois. After graduating school, he went into a newspaper job. He took part in World War I. During the Spanish Civil War and World War II, he served as a war correspondent. He wrote many short stories and novels. His most famous novels are The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, The Old Man and the Sea. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1953. In 1961, he died.
He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he'd gone 84 days now without taking a fish. In the first 40 days a boy had been with him, but after 40 days without a fish, the boy's parents had told him that the old man was unlucky, and the boy had gone at their orders in another boat, which caught 3 good fish the first week. It made the boy sad to see the old man come in each day with his skiff empty, and he always went down to help him. The old man was thin, with deep wrinkles in the back of his neck. Everything about him was old, except his eyes, and they were the same colour as the sea, and were cheerful and undefeated. "Santiago," the boy said to him, as they climbed the bank from where the skiff was hauled up, "I could go with you again. We've made some money." The old man had taught the boy to fish, and the boy loved him. "No," the old man said, "you're with a lucky boat. Stay with them." "But remember how you went 87 days without fish, and then we caught big ones every day for 3 weeks. "I remember," the old man said. "And I know you did not leave me because you doubted. It was Papa made me leave. I'm a boy and I must obey him." "I know," the old man said. "It's quite normal." "He hasn't much faith." "No," the old man said. "But we have, haven't we?" "Yes," the boy said. "Can I offer you a beer on the terrace, and then we'll take the stuff home?" "Why not?" the old man said. "Between fishermen."
A Day's Wait by Ernest Hemingway.
He came into the room to shut the windows while we were still in bed, and I saw he looked ill. He was shivering. His face was white, and he walked slowly as though it ached to move. "What's the matter, darling?" "I've got a headache." "You better go back to bed." "No, I'm all right." "You go to bed. I'll see you when I'm dressed." But when I came downstairs, he was dressed, sitting by the fire, looking a very sick and miserable boy of 9 years. When I put my hand on his forehead, I knew he had a fever. "You go to bed," I said. "You're sick." "I'm all right," he said. When the doctor came, he took the boy's temperature. "What is it?" I asked him. 102. Downstairs, the doctor left 3 different medicines with instructions for giving them. Back in the room, I asked the boy, "Do you want me to read to you?" "All right, if you want to," said the boy. His face was very white, and there were dark areas under his eyes. I read aloud from the Book of Pirates, but I could see he was not following what I was reading. "How do you feel, darling?" I asked him. "Just the same, so far," he said. "Why don't you try to go to sleep? I'll wake you up for the medicine." "I'd rather stay awake." I went out for a while. It was a bright, cold day. When I came back, they said the boy refused to let anyone come into the room. "You can't come in," he said. "You mustn't get what I have." I went up to him and found him in exactly the same position I had left him. I took his temperature. "What is it?" "Something like 100, I said. It was 102 4/10. "It was 102, he said. "Who said so?" "The doctor." "Your temperature's all right," I said. "It's nothing to worry about." "I don't worry," he said, "but I can't keep from thinking." "Don't think," I said. "Just take it easy." "I'm taking it easy," he said, and looked straight ahead. I sat down and opened the pirate book and started reading. "About what time am I going to die?" he asked. "What?" "About how long will it be before I die?" "You aren't going to die. What's the matter with you?" "Oh, yes, I am. I heard him say 102. "People don't die with a fever of 102. That's a silly way to talk." "I know they do. At school in France, the boys told me you can't live with 44 degrees. I've got 102. He'd been waiting to die all day, ever since 9 o'clock in the morning. "You poor darling," I said. "It's like miles and kilometers. You aren't going to die." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," I said. "It's like miles and kilometers. You know, like how many kilometers we make when we do 70 miles in the car." "Oh," he said. But his gaze at the foot of the bed relaxed slowly. The hold over himself relaxed too, finally, and the next day he cried very easily at little things that were of no importance.
Jack London, 1876, 1916. Jack London, one of the greatest of American writers, was born in San Francisco in 1876. In his short life, he changed many professions. He was a newspaper boy, a sailor, and an adventurer. In 1900, The Son of the Wolf was published, and in 1903, the famous dog tale, The Call of the Wild. The years 1906-1911 were the prime of London's creative work, when he wrote some of his best books. The White Fang, The Iron Heel, and Martin Eden, the most popular autobiographical book of his period. Then followed The Valley of the Moon and The Little Lady of the Big House. He was only 40 when he died. White Fang, New Master, from White Fang by Jack London. White Fang is the story of a dog. The extract shows how fierce and full of hate White Fang had become under the whip of a cruel master, and how he changed when he felt the hands of Weedon Scott, a man who loved and understood animals.
As White Fang watched Weedon Scott approach, he bristled and snarled to show that he would not let Scott punish him. 24 hours had passed since he had bitten Scott's hand. In the nature of things, White Fang thought something terrible would be done to him. Man was cruel and never forgot. The man sat down several feet away. White Fang could see nothing dangerous in that. When men punished, they stood on their legs. Besides, this man had no stick, no whip, no gun, and then he himself was free. The man was quiet, made no movement. Then he spoke, and at the sound of his voice the hair rose on White Fang's neck. But the man made no movement, and went on calmly talking. He talked to White Fang. Nobody had ever talked to the dog like that. In spite of himself, White Fang began to have confidence in the man. Ah, he had thought so. There it came now. The man's hand. It was going to hurt him. It was descending on his head. But the man went on talking. His voice was soft and pleasant. In spite of the hand, the voice gave confidence. The struggle in White Fang's feelings was terrible. It was against his instinct to let the hand touch him. He could not forget in a day how much the hands of men had hurt him. He compromised. He snarled and bristled. But he neither bit the man nor sprang away. The hand descended. Nearer it came. It touched the end of his hair. The hand lifted and descended again in a patting movement. White Fang growled and growled, for he still feared the man. Yet it was the beginning of the end for White Fang, the ending of the old life of hate. A new life was beginning. It required much thinking and endless patience on the part of Weedon Scott to do this. And on the part of White Fang, it required nothing less than a revolution. But White Fang did not run away, because he liked this new master.
True Love by Isaak Asimov. This is a story for Valentine's Day, February the 14th, when lovers traditionally exchange tokens of affection. Untraditionally, however, the hero in this story, Milton Davidson, asks his computer robot to find the perfect woman for him to marry. Or is Milton Davidson the real hero? And is the result of this computer search indeed true love?
My name's Joe. That's what my colleague Milton Davidson calls me. He's a programmer, and I'm a computer. I'm part of the multivac complex, and I'm connected with other parts all over the world. I know everything. Almost everything. I'm Milton's private computer, Here's Joe. He understands more about computers than anyone in the world, and I'm his experimental model. He's made me speak better than any other computer can. It's just a matter of matching sounds to symbols, Joe, he told me. That's the way it works in the human brain, even though we still don't know what symbols there are in the brain. I know the symbols in yours, and I can match them to words, one to one. So I talk. I don't think I talk as well as I think, but Milton says I talk very well. Milton has never married, though he's nearly 40 years old. He's never found the right woman, he told me. One day he said, "I'll find her yet, Joe. I'm going to find the best. I'm going to have true love, and you're going to help me. I'm tired of improving you in order to solve the problems of the world. Solve my problems. Find me true love." I said, "What's true love?" "Never mind, that's abstract. Just find me the ideal girl. You're connected to the multivac complex, so you can reach the data banks of every human being in the world. We'll eliminate them all by groups and classes until we're left with only one person, the perfect person. She'll be for me." I said, "I'm ready." He said, "Eliminate all men first." Then he said, "Eliminate all younger than 25, all older than 40. All with a height under 150 centimeters and over 175 centimeters. After 2 weeks, we were down to 235 women. They all spoke English very well. Milton said he didn't want a language problem. Even computer translation would get in the way at intimate moments. "I can't interview 235 women," he said. "It would take too much time, and people would discover what I'm doing." "It would make trouble," I said. Milton had arranged me to do things I wasn't designed to do. No one knew about that. "It's none of their business," he said. "I'll bring in holographs, and you check the list for similarities." Then he brought in the pictures of 3 beauty contest winners. They were much alike. Milton liked no one. He said, "I can't understand it, Joe. The women are ideal. Why don't they please me?" I said, "Do you please them?" "That's it, Joe. It's a two-way street. If I'm not their ideal, they can't act in such a way as to be my ideal. I must be their true love too. But how do I do that?" He seemed to be thinking all day long. At last they found her. Her name was Charity Jones. I don't have to describe her. Milton had coordinated my symbolism so closely with his own, I could tell the resonance directly. It fitted me. Tomorrow is February the 14th, Valentine's Day. Charity will arrive with her cool hands and her sweet voice. I will teach her how to operate me and how to care for me. What do looks matter when our personalities will resonate? I will say to her, "I'm Joe, and you are my true love."
The Oyster and the Pearl by William Saroyan. The Oyster and the Pearl is a humorous play with a happy end which demonstrates faith in the basic goodness of human nature. It reflects the author's attitude towards life and people. The two main characters in the play are Harry Van Dusen and Vivian McCutcheon, a new English teacher.
Miss America, I presume?
Miss McCutcheon.
Harry Van Dusen.
How do you do?
Miss McCutcheon.
I'm new here.
You'd be new anywhere. I might say, surely you don't live here?
As a matter of fact, I do. I'm the new teacher at the school.
You are?
Yes, I am.
How do you like it?
1 week at this school has exhausted me completely. As a matter of fact, I want to quit and go home to San Francisco. At the same time, I have a feeling I ought to stay. What do you think?
Are you serious? I mean in asking me.
Of course I'm serious. You've been here a long time. You know everybody in town. Shall I go or shall I stay?
Depends on what you're looking for. I stopped here 24 years ago because I decided I wasn't looking for anything anymore. Well, I was mistaken. I was looking, and I found exactly what I was looking for.
What's that?
A chance to take my time. That's why I'm still here. What are you looking for, Miss McCutcheon?
Well,
I mean besides a husband.
I'm not looking for a husband. I expect a husband to look for me.
That's fair.
I'm looking for a chance to teach.
That's fair too.
But this town, the children just don't seem to care about anything. Whether they get good grades or bad, whether they pass or fail, or anything else. The only thing they seem to be interested in is games and the sea. That's why I'm on my way to the beach now. I thought if I could watch them on a Saturday, I might understand them better.
Yes, that's a thought.
Nobody seems to have any sensible ambition. It's all fun and play. How can I teach children like that? What can I teach them?
English.
Of course.
Singing, dancing, cooking. You're too good for a town like this.
I'm not.
Too young and too intelligent. Youth and intelligence need excitement.
In the Early Days of the Photograph by Jerome K. Jerome.
It was in the early days of the photographic craze. My friend Begley became one of the first photographers. Whatever he saw, wherever he went, he took. He took his friends and made them his enemies. He took babies and brought despair to mothers' hearts. He took young wives and cast a shadow on the home. Once there was a young man who loved a girl whom his father did not like. Then a happy idea came to the father. He got Begley to photograph her in 7 different positions. When a lover saw the first, he said, "What an awful-looking thing! Who did it?" When Begley showed him the second, he said, "But, my dear fellow, it's not at all like her. You've made her look an ugly old woman." At the third, he said, "What have you done with her feet? They can't be that size, you know. It isn't in nature." At the fourth, he exclaimed, "Just look at the shape you've made her." "It's not the fault of Begley," exclaimed the old gentleman. "What is a photograph?" simply an instrument in the hands of science. He arranges his apparatus, and whatever is in front of it comes into it. I was sorry for the poor girl, for I believe she really cared for the youngster, and as for her looks, she was quite pretty. It was always so with Begley. Babies usually came out as idiots. Young girls had a look of aggressive cynicism.
Uncle Podger at Work by Jerome K. Jerome.
There are many people who say they like to do a little piece of work themselves. They say, why call somebody into the house or ask a lot of people to help when you can do the job very well alone? My dear Uncle Podger is just that sort of man. He likes pictures very much and often buys them. But let me tell you what happens when he hangs a picture on the wall. Well, a picture comes home from the shop. It's standing in the dining room. It's necessary to put it up. And Uncle Podger says, "Oh, leave that to me. Don't trouble about it. I'll do it myself." Then he takes off his coat and begins. But he's no nails. He sends the girl to buy some nails. Then he sends one of the boys to tell her what size to buy. Then he shouts, "Now you go and get me my hammer, Will, and bring me the ruler, Tom, and I'll want a ladder, Jim, and a kitchen chair too. And don't go away, Maria, because I shall want somebody to hold the light, and Tom will hand me up the picture." When all's ready, and Tom hands him the picture, he lifts it up and drops it, and it comes out of the frame. He tries to save the glass, and cuts himself. Half an hour passes. At last we tie up his finger, bring him a new glass, all the tools he wants, and the ladder, the chair, and the candle. The whole family stands round him now, ready to help. Two of us hold the chair. A third helps him to get up on it and holds him there. A fourth hands him a nail. A fifth hands him the hammer. He takes the nail and drops it. "There," he says, "now the nail's gone." And we all must go down on our knees and look for it, while he stands on the chair and grumbles, "Will you keep me here all the evening?" At last we find the nail, but this time he's lost the hammer. "Where's the hammer?" he shouts. "What did I do with the hammer?" At last we find the hammer for him, and then he's lost the mark which he made in the wall for the nail. Later on, Uncle Podger finds his mark for the nail and puts the point of the nail on it with his left hand and takes the hammer in his right hand. With the first blow, he smashes his thumb and drops the hammer on somebody's foot. But this time Aunt Maria gets angry and says that next time Uncle Podger undertakes to do a job, she will go and spend a week with her mother. "Oh, you women, you have no patience," Uncle Podger says. "Why, I like doing a little job of this sort." He tries again, and at the second blow the nail goes through the wall and the hammer falls. Then we must find the hammer again, and he makes a new hole. About midnight, the picture is up at last, and everybody is very tired, except, of course, Uncle Podger. "There you are," he says, coming down from the chair at last. "Why, other people call in a special man to do a little thing like that."
The doctor's advice.
Once an old gentleman went to see a doctor. The doctor examined him and said, "Medicine won't help you. You must have complete rest. Go to a quiet country place for a month, go to bed early, drink milk, walk a lot, and smoke just 1 cigar a day." "Thank you very much," said the old gentleman. "I shall do everything you say." A month later, the gentleman came to the doctor again. "How do you do?" said the doctor. "I'm very glad to see you look much better now." "Oh, doctor," said the gentleman, "I feel quite well now. I had a good rest. I went to bed early. I drank a lot of milk. I walked a lot. Your advice certainly helped me. But you told me to smoke a cigar a day, and that 1 cigar a day almost killed me at first. It's no joke to start smoking at my age."
An American lady in England.
An American lady, travelling in England some years ago, got into the compartment of a smoking carriage where an Englishman was smoking a pipe. For a short time she sat quietly expecting that the Englishman would stop smoking. But then she began to cough and sneeze, trying to show him that she objected to the smoke. At last, seeing that the man took no notice of her and did not put out his pipe, she said, "If you were a gentleman, you'd stop smoking when a lady got into the carriage." "If you were a lady," replied the Englishman, "you wouldn't get into a smoking compartment." "If you were my husband," said the American lady angrily, "I would give you poison." The Englishman looked at her for a moment or two. "Well," he said at last, "if I were your husband, I would take it."
The birthday gift.
A young man met a beautiful girl at a party and fell in love with her. For days he thought of ways of showing her how much she meant to him. At last the opportunity came. He heard by chance that the next day was the girl's 21st birthday. The young man at once ran to a flower shop, bought 21 beautiful roses, and asked the owner of the shop to send them to the girl's house the next morning. And he wrote a message. "Happy birthday. I'm sending you red roses, 1 for each year of your life." The shop owner knew the young man quite well, and he liked him. He knew he was a poor student. When the young man left the shop, the owner thought, "It's clear the flowers are for the girl he's going to marry. He'd like to send more roses, but he hasn't enough money. I'll help him." And he added 9 more roses instead of 21 into a nice box together with the young man's message. When the young man came to the girl's house the next day, she opened the door herself. Imagine his surprise when, before he could open his mouth, she said, "I don't want to see you again," and she closed the door in his face.
The Mistake by Isaak Asimov.
"Oh yes, I can bring back people from the past," said Dr. Welsh, the famous scientist. Scott Robertson, the school's young English teacher, smiled and said, "Really, Dr. Welsh?" "I mean it," said the scientist. He looked to the right and to the left to be sure that nobody could overhear them. "I've brought back quite a few men. Archimedes, Newton, Galileo. Poor fellows." "Didn't they like it here?" asked the English teacher. "Oh, they did," said the scientist. "They did, but not for long." "What was wrong?" "They couldn't get used to our way of life. I had to send them back to the past." "That's too bad." "Yes," said the scientist. "Great minds, but not universal mind, so I tried Shakespeare. What? Said the teacher. Did you say you brought back William Shakespeare? I did. I needed someone with a universal mind, someone who understood people. Shakespeare was the man. I've even got his signature as a souvenir. Do you have it with you? Asked the teacher. Right here. The scientist handed a little piece of paper to the English teacher. Tell me, Robertson said, what did he look like? Not like his pictures. Bald and with ugly moustaches. Of course, I told him we thought his plays were the greatest examples of literature in the English language, maybe in any language. And? Asked the English teacher. Oh, he was fascinated. Poor fellow. I even told him we have college courses in Shakespeare. I teach a course like that, said Robertson. I know, said Welsh. I enrolled him in your course called Introduction to Shakespeare. I have never seen a man more eager than poor Bill to learn. He worked very hard. William Shakespeare was one of my students, Robertson cried. He couldn't believe it. It was impossible. Or was it? He was beginning to recall a bald man with a strange way of talking. I didn't enroll him under his real name, of course, said Dr. Welsh. Never mind the name. It was a mistake, a big mistake. Why was it a mistake? Asked Robertson. What happened? I had to send him back to his own time, my dear man, because you flunked him.